I platinumed a load of PlayStation games in 2023. Games of all kinds of genres, across all kinds of PlayStation systems, including the PS5, the PS4, and even the PS Vita and PlayStation 3. But of all these games that I platinumed and earned trophies in, just what were the hardest trophies that I unlocked in 2023?
Beating professional difficulty on a new game's save without the use of bonus weapons in order to unlock the hand cannon, which was the final weapon I needed for the gunsmith trophy in Resident Evil 4 Remake, was simultaneously the best and worst parts about the Platinum journey. Professional mode is the hardest difficulty in the game, and aside from the enemies taking more bullets to down, the other hard aspects are a brutally lacking rate of resources and ammo dropped to you, as well as the fact that there are no autosave checkpoints. This meant that whenever you would die, you'd go back to your most recent typewriter save. However, you can save on those typewriters unlimited times as there are no increments for you to collect, so with a lot of backtracking to typewriters, this proved to be really useful to make slow progress in clearing out areas. I made 200 saves by the time I beat Pro difficulty. That's because I kept going back every time I killed a couple of enemies to save my progress. In order to make it a bit more easier, I made sure I unlocked the knight armour so Ashley wouldn't get caught or killed, and the chicken hat to reduce the damage I took, because right from the get-go, as soon as you get to the village section, Pro mode difficulty shows you that it's pulling no punches. On lower difficulties, this section is hectic, but on Pro, this part is actually terrifying, as you do not have enough pistol ammo to take everyone out, as despite pumping them full of lead, they will just keep on coming at you. Plus, enemies are now stronger and will deal more damage to you, so the last thing you want to do is to be going head to head with them. This section was really scary, especially after running around the area dodging zombies in a hunt for grenades. I then retreated up to the tower, where I then stood at the top of it looking down to shoot any zombie who tried to climb up the ladder. While I didn't always kill them with this method, it did buy me some time, and once a few of them had piled up at the bottom, I threw my grenade down to kill them all, only to then find that the cutscene triggered and my nade had seemingly went through the wall and blew up outside, resulting in it not hurting anyone in that pile of enemies down below. Great start here, game. The bullshit has begun already. Eventually, when trying to hold down that position at the top of the ladder, I ran out of pistol ammo and had to switch to the knife and just frantically stab them to knock them back down. This was really terrifying, and at some point one enemy got up and died at the top, or at least I thought, but then he started to mutate, so now I just had to jump down and fall into the horde below, and somehow I managed to escape the pile of enemies down here, only healing once or twice, and then I just had to run around and get into that shotgun house to grab that gun and use it on the chainsaw guy. But sadly, the chainsaw guy seemed to really like my shotgun bullets, as they barely made a scratch on him. At this point, I was standing on the rooftop, not really knowing what to do. I didn't have much ammo, and I didn't really have much health left to use, so I just decided to make a run for it and jump off the rooftop. And then, as I landed, surrounded by more enemies with a chainsaw guy behind me, the bell rang. This section was over, and I had barely survived it by the skin of my teeth. Wow, what a rush. Never has that village section felt so tough, so horrible, so scary. 13 minutes into Pro mode now, and I absolutely love it. Sadly, that happy feeling in Pro mode wouldn't stay with me for the duration of this run, as I would drastically swing between hating it and loving it as I played through more and more of the game. You see, the difficulty does start to get massively frustrating when you realise just how much ammo a single normal enemy can take to down, and when they mutate later in the game, you're going to be using even more ammo to just take out one enemy. And as you always know what big battles are lying ahead, it's not always wise for you to try and kill everyone you see, as you may need that ammo later on. One of the annoying things that happened to me a lot in this run was that enemies and crates were just barely dropping any ammo, as it would always usually be money, or worse still, ammo for guns that I didn't even have. As a result, in some areas, it was far better to just simply speedrun past as many enemies as possible and avoid combat altogether. This water farm area here, where you need to get the boat fuel, was a good example of it, as I just ran past all of the enemies here and only engaged enemies that were directly in front of me, using the shotgun to blast them out of the way of the door so I could get out of the room after grabbing the fuel. Running and avoiding enemies is something you'll need to do a lot in this run, and the good thing about this area in particular was that after progressing further into the game, I could come back here before going to the church and all the enemies were gone, allowing me to just loot the area freely and hunt for the precious vipers and fish. Log cabin battle, which was another massive fight that uses up a lot of your ammo and resources, as this is a really tough, hectic and crazy battle to try and survive on pro difficulty. Sure, the cabin does contain ammo drops, but it will all be used up on the barrage of enemies that burst into the cabin, never mind the large mallet wielding tank that you also have to try and take down somehow. It's utter madness, and anything can happen. So by the time you do finally manage to take that enemy down, you'll just breathe a sigh of relief, and even if, like me, where you've just barely scraped by and have barely anything left in your inventory, you'll just take it as it is and carry on, because you don't want to try and replay that. After that, it was on to the Chief Mendez boss fight, and unfortunately I only had enough bullets to take him on the first phase, but thankfully I'd saved up enough money at that point to buy the rocket launcher, so once I finally got him to his second phase, he went down really easy, and then it was on to the castle, and at this point things were starting to look up a bit more. I managed to upgrade my weapons. I swapped out to a more powerful shotgun and started to upgrade that, as well as the Red 9 pistol, and I slowly but surely made my way through the castle, though I was on very short supply of most things at that stage. And because of that, I foolishly brought the Deluxe Edition DLC, which is why my costume changes at this point, because I wanted to get the extra weapons so I'd have a bit more ammo and some things to sell to get more money if I needed it later on, because I was always panicked I wouldn't be able to afford another RPG for the later sections of the game. So I continued through the castle with my new look, and things came to a crashing halt once I got to the water room, which was always a pain in the original version, and in the remake it was even worse. And I could go on for ages about how much this room sucked, but I think the best way to really convey the awfulness room is to just show you how my attempts went as I tried to get through this on pro difficulty.
Oh, it was there! I saw it! It was there! How am I supposed to hit... how am I supposed to do this? Like, how am I supposed to do this? Please answer me, game. Look at that. Look at that guy. Look at that guy, man. How many is it gonna spawn, man? I can't even kill them. I can't kill them. Look at this Didn't die. And of course, look, I've got no bullets to get you. Oh, look at this crap. Look at this crap. So what do I do now? What do I do now, brilliant game? What do we do now? No bullets, nothing. No bullets, nothing. No one drops bullets. I can't craft nothing. I can't do nothing. I can't hit that person up there now. So this is impossible for me to complete now, isn't it? What an absolute this is. What an absolute dumb mode. Yep. Take her away. I don't want to see her again.
Eventually, me and Ashley escaped the water room, and I finally got on with the rest of the castle. And the next couple of big areas that have a lot of enemies in, I just rushed through them as well. I just keep on running, and I ran into the sanctuary bit without any of them enemies really sort of doing anything to me. And now I'm pretty much at the end of the game, on the home stretch. I brought a rocket launcher in the castle that I didn't use, so I had 2 in the island. So with this rocket launcher, me and Ashley could now go to the end of the game. And while I would leave her behind here for the boss fight, she wouldn't have to wait long because, well, look at how quickly this is disposed of. So he jumps down, I fire the rocket launcher, and that first wave is just completely obliterated. And after skipping the cutscenes, I then have to fight the final bit of the boss, just shooting the eye and dodging the tentacle attacks, just while I'm waiting for Ada to eventually throw me another rocket launcher so I can quickly finish off the final boss. And with that rocket launcher now in my hand, as soon as I figured out where I was and where the boss was, I just fired it into his glowing eye, and that was it. The final boss made absolutely easy, even on professional difficulty, and then just getting out on the jet ski and completing the game. And this was just such a great feeling. Professional difficulty was finally over. All of that blood, sweat and tears, especially at the beginning of the game, to have the end part of the game just be so easy, does feel really cheap. Yeah, 14 and a half hours almost, 200 saves later, I had finally beaten professional mode with a B rank, and I had finally gotten that hand cannon weapon, which I had so long been sought after. After clearing the story in Sonic Superstars for the first time, you will unlock Trip's story, allowing you to play through the game again as this new character. Her mode is essentially hard mode, as you replay the same levels as before, only this time there are far more BS enemies placed in some real BS areas. Plus, there's a load of these egg robos that you can not really attack a lot of the times, and they just constantly shoot at you. And sometimes they're just in the background, so you just have to avoid them. And other times they'll be at the top of ledges, just waiting to snipe you and send you flying back down without any rings. And honestly, replaying the game in Trip's story mode just really sucked the fun out of it, and it became a tedious and frustrating playthrough, as you're just constantly getting hurt by these cheap things that you oftentimes just can't even see coming until it's too late. Plus, the bosses in all of the zones and acts take a lot more hits than usual, and when a lot of them are already padded out with these long drawn out sections where you can't even hurt them, it just makes this second playthrough more annoying than fun, especially when it comes to beating Fang the sniper at the very end of her adventure to unlock the Trip's Courage trophy. This boss fight is the stuff of nightmares, and is by far the hardest boss in the entire game, harder than even the true final boss of the whole story. The fight itself takes around 10 minutes to beat. Yep, that's right, 10 whole minutes just on this fight alone. And guess what? There are no checkpoints in this fight at all, so if you happen to lose all your rings and die at any point during the fight, you are put back right before the fight and have to do everything all over again. That includes all of the dodging, waiting and watching for your moments to actually get to attack this annoying boss. To make matters worse, Fang also has a bunch of one-hit kill moves, so even if you had 100 rings in this fight, you can still be insta-killed if these hit you. There's these pink laser beams that he will fire out at you that you can easily slam into in the first wave of the fight if you're not careful, and then in the second phase of the fight, when he transforms into the giant mech, things get even tougher as he gains more insta-kill moves like these nets that will trap you and more often result in a game over when he shoots these giant bullets at you, because one hit from these and it will send you flying into the screen, giving you an instant game over. Honestly, this fight just feels so cheap, and as it's a Sonic game, you could expect lots of BS and jankiness to it, as things often didn't seem to work how they should have during this fight, which is really annoying, trust me, especially when the fight lasts 10 minutes and you can die to a stupid glitch with the game that's just not your fault. One of the worst parts for this is near the very end of the fight when he slams his arms down onto the stage, destroying parts of the platform. This can be an insta-kill, wiping your run of over 8 minutes up to that point in an instant. And just take a look at all of these different ways I've failed this section because of the game. Each BS death here meant that I just wasted about 8 minutes of gameplay, and I had to start over each time from the very beginning of the fight, and it just became really frustrating to have to go back and redo the slightly easier phase 1 again and again and again, as it's just so dragged out, and the window of opportunity to be able to hit him before he flies away just feels so small, and honestly it made me groan every time I missed one, as it meant that I had to wait for the whole cycle to go around again before I could hit him, and it's just a lot of wasted time in a fight that already wastes a lot of your time. So the more you hit him in this phase, the more aggressive he gets, with more lasers and missiles coming out for you to dodge past. And with this dive bomb move, it's something that can also easily end your run. However, it's mainly due to what part of the stage this triggers on, as the circular floor that you run around has a load of lumpy ramps on it, and if you were to start this bit on this like slopey bit here, you might find that you're too slow to dodge his attacks. So once you've hit him enough, which is about 7 or 8 times during this phase, he then transforms into the Mecha Fang, and this is phase 2 of the fight, and it's basically where the fight starts properly, as the past 4 minutes or so you spent fighting him in phase 1 is nothing more than just a warm-up. So here the goal is to get behind him and hit him with his own projectiles. If you were to do it head on, he will block them, so you need to be moving fast to get around him in time. So the missiles and robots it poops out at you are what allows you to hit it, so you have to hit them and then they fly back into him. So you're always waiting on those attacks to come after another attack that he does that you just have to simply dodge. Yet when he does these moves, I'd often not be able to run behind Fang before the first wave of missiles had been fired and landed, or it sometimes goes a bit too far and it's more on his front than back, meaning it won't matter anyway. And sometimes when I did knock it at him, it just didn't even register as a hit, which was, even more annoying. Overall, I think this is just a rubbish boss fight that is just too long for its own good, and the one-hit insta-kill elements are more frustrating than challenging. They just don't need to be there, as it's still challenging without them killing you outright, and as a 10-minute fight where you probably only get about 2 minutes of time to actually hurt him, it ends up feeling like the battle is just padded out with a lot of fluff and boring bits where you're just aimlessly running around just waiting for him to stop doing his moves so he can do that one move where you can actually hit him. Plus those spiderweb net things that he fires out in the second phase, they can be easy to dodge, but if you're running too fast around the circular platform, you may end up looping round and will end up running into the ones that he's already fired because they just don't disappear, which I think is really annoying. And if you do get trapped by one of these nets, you're pretty much dead, because despite me mashing X every time I got into it, I would rarely get out of them in time to dodge the one-hit kill missile, so it just feels really cheap and BS, to be honest. But Eventually, I managed to beat it and get the trophy, but this fight took me over 1 hour to beat, and as you can imagine, I raged and swore loads when replaying it again and again, just trying to beat this boss. And honestly, after beating it that one time, I was just relieved it was over, as it meant that I never had to do this terrible fight again. The Tripped Courage trophy is likely to be a platinum blocker for some, as this fight is just unfair, it's cheap, it's way too long, and it's annoyingly rather glitchy. The Got Catch Them All trophy in Rustler is one of the most frustrating trophies that I have tried to unlock in quite some time, and it's another low point for collectibles in general. In my book, they are already one of the worst time-wasting trophies out there, but in Rustler, they've managed to reach down into the bottom of the barrel and have picked one that is even worse than those hard-to-reach posters in Mafia 2, the missable collectibles in Bioshock, the glitched datapads in Alien's Dark Descent, and even the tedious RNG fest that was getting all of the capsule toys in Shenmue 3. So, this mission, Naylad, which requires you to find 8 super rare legendary horses and deliver them to this Ash Ketchum wannabe, even manages to start off on the wrong foot, or should that be Huff, by how it's simply set up, as this is a hidden mission that doesn't actually appear on the map, so it's one that you may or may not stumble across as you play through the game. And while you can start it at any time if you were to do this before beating the story, then the mission becomes even more awkward to complete. Why? Oh, well, it's not like how the Mafia get really aggressive with you in GTA 3 after a certain point in the story or anything. Oh no. It's actually because of a poor decision on the developer's part to make the end game permanently set at night.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Which, trust me, is a bad thing, because having to do this trophy in the darkness with nothing but a dim torch makes it even more of a pain in the butt, especially when, even in the daylight, the horses themselves are still rather hard to make out due to the game's isometric viewpoint, and the fact that most of the horses have a load of crap on them, so you can barely get a glimpse of their actual skin colour or pattern. Trying to find these horses at night just made the whole experience 100 times worse, and if you're like me, you'll be constantly stopping to get off your horse and take a look at a suspect horse that you think might be the one you need. So, out of fear of missing out, you will just get on that horse anyway and waste several minutes riding it back to the stables, only to find that it's not the specific charger horse that the guy was after. Another problem I have with these missions is that when you approach Gash Ketchup, he only gives you a very brief text description, which doesn't always give you the right idea of what to be looking for. I mean, here I am going for a blue horse speed, having earlier collected a red horse speed, so you'd expect it to look something like this, wouldn't you? But nope, this is the blue one, which really isn't even blue. The striped warhorse was one that took me forever to find, thanks to this look-alike horse here that has this cloth and black stripes on it to trick you into thinking that it's the one you need, and of course you'll always see that when you're riding around. These rather basic descriptions only add further to the frustration and the length of this mission and leave it just feeling half-baked. I feel this would have worked much better if you were given a picture of them, even if it wasn't a screenshot from the game of the horse model and instead a drawing of it styled to the game's setting that you could just pull out as an inventory item so you've something to refer back to when searching. It would have been better. Anything would have been better than just a brief line of text which never changes no matter how many times you go to him with the wrong horse. It's crazy that you'll never get a new message or even a clue to its location, as bafflingly there are no set spawn locations for these horses. I even tried going back to areas I found ones in previously, yet no new legendary horse would spawn there, and in the end I found them in all corners of the map. This means that you are at the mercy of the game's RNG and the spawn rate of that particular horse, which appear to be set so low that you can spend anywhere between a few minutes or a few hours riding around the map waiting for the legendary horse you want to finally spawn in. This whole trophy just felt like busy work to extend the game's runtime, with you having to do nothing more than play the RNG game, spawning in a set amount of horses by riding around the environment until you did enough to get the one horse you wanted to spawn in. Worse still, I would often find that when I did see a legendary horse, it would always be for the one I just collected. In particular, this spotted horse, which I probably saw a good 7-8 times while riding around, despite the first one of those taking me hours to see. It's a further kick to the nuts to suddenly see that damn rare horse spawn 4 or 5 more times after it took you so long to find it once. Honestly, it was just so tiring, so dull and annoying that this whole mission really soured my enjoyment of getting the Platinum Trophy in Rustler. Like I said earlier too, you could get really lucky on the next one and find it within a minute right away, or like my 4th horse, you just hit a brick wall and are then forced to ride around for 3 or 4 hours before you finally spot it. With the mission being like this, it is really unfair to the player to keep spawning in previously collected horses, as it just wastes your time when looking for another legendary horse to spawn in. The mission would have been much more fun if you just hunted them down, maybe following clues to their locations in the environment, or following a trail. Even with icons on the map telling me exactly where to go, you still as a player could have had some enjoyment with this mission, but instead, the way they half-arsed it with no set location for any of the horses just breaks this mission in my opinion, and turns it into a terrible part of the game. Anyways, the final horse is a rainbow charger, which you would think would be an easy one to spot, what with it being the colours of the rainbow. Perhaps it could look like this, right? Well, nope. This is what the rainbow charger looks like. And honestly, with that right there, I don't feel like I need to say much more, as that shows how BS this part of the game and this trophy can be. Daymare 1994 Sandcastle's Demolition Woman trophy unlocks for beating the game with an S rank, and this is done by beating the game on hardcore mode in under 4 hours and with 0 deaths, which does sound horrible, but considering you can unlock infinite ammo for the Frost and machine gun, which you can then use on your hardcore run, it's fairly easy to speed through the game within that time limit, so long as you know where you're going. So, while time isn't really a factor that you need to worry about for this trophy, getting through the entire game without dying is most definitely going to be an issue, as deaths register immediately on your save game file, so one mistake and your run could easily be ruined. So it's definitely wise to go for this trophy on your 2nd or 3rd run of the game, and it's an even better idea to unlock those infinite ammo for the Frost and machine gun first, as with those tricky areas like the prison cell section of the game can become a breeze. And honestly, I was really enjoying this infinite ammo run on hardcore. Well, that was until I got to this point in the game, an area where I had struggled to get past it on my first playthrough, but this time, even though the enemies are stronger on this mode, I have infinite ammo. But you see, there's a particular enemy type waiting for me down this hole in the room that's going to make getting past this area, even with infinite ammo on hardcore, an absolute pain. soon as you drop down into the room, you'll find that it's empty with no enemies in sight, so you'll just think it's a normal room that you're just progressing through, but far from it, because as you walk down to one end of the room after grabbing the ammo, you will trigger what I think is the worst and most BS fight in the entire game, as this is a fight that can go from 1 to 100 in seconds if you don't act right away and start shooting that first Sparker enemy that appears. You see, this is a battle that requires you to be fast, accurate and lucky with the RNG nature of enemy spawns, and this Sparker enemy right here is the sole reason this fight is so annoyingly BS, as it will shoot electricity at these eggs that are in the room in order to hatch more Sparker enemies, and this enemy type is one that can kill you instantly the moment they grab you, so the last thing you want in this small cramped room is a load of these Sparker enemies that can easily kill you.
Of course. How many are around, man? I'm literally... That room's just full.
After shooting the Sparker a couple of times, you'll interrupt the attack, and then they'll disappear, and after a few seconds they will reappear somewhere else in the room, beside another egg, and attempt to hatch that one to spawn another Sparker enemy, and in total I think there's around 5 eggs in this room that they can hatch. And to cause you further frustration, these Sparkers teleport is actually random every time, so you are never sure as to where they will reappear in the room. Sometimes the Sparker will appear right on top of you, which will likely kill you instantly before you even know they're there. Other times the Sparker will appear at the very back of the room, in which case you likely won't be able to interrupt him in time before he frees another Sparker. Then, in other runs, he'd reappear at the very first spawn, which would always catch me off guard, as it would take me too long to realise that he's actually behind me, and by that point, he would have spawned another enemy almost immediately. Great. And that there is the problem, because the more of his friends that he frees, the less likely you are to succeed, as things will just get worse and worse really fast once there's more than one of these Sparker enemies in the area. Because one of the Sparkers will just chase after you, while the other Sparker will just try and hatch more eggs, and then before you know it, there'll be 3 or 4 or even 5 of these Sparkers all chasing after you, at which point you may as well just restart before they one-hit kill you with their grab and ruin your S rank. What makes the Sparker enemy even more annoying to fight is just how bullet spongy they are, and how much damage they can take before you interrupt their electricity attack, as they need about 3 shotgun blasts before they stop their electricity beam, and it practically takes a whole 30 to 40 round clip of the machine gun to interrupt them as well, so you've got to be really fast and really lucky with the spawn locations to be able to get him in time to prevent other Sparkers from hatching for as long as possible during this fight if you're to have any chance of making it through it. And to make matters even more BS, as soon as you interrupt that very first Sparker for the first time, 2 zombie enemies will also teleport into the area, and these will need to be dealt with quickly so that you can then chase after the Sparker without these zombies grabbing you and slowing you down. And these zombie enemies will spawn in groups of 2 several times throughout this fight, and it was always at the worst opportunities just to make my run a fail. And while you'll never likely die directly from them, if these zombies grab you, it's probably game over anyway, as the Sparker would have likely freed another one of its pals by the time you've broken free, which will just ruin your run anyway. This room is honestly terrible. It's by far the worst part of the game, as it's just so unfair and it just expects so much from you. One slight mistake or hesitation, looking the wrong way and having to readjust, and you won't stop that creature in time, and then you'll have to deal with another and probably another Sparker as you desperately try and move around the room to stop more from reappearing, only to then get grabbed out of nowhere and be one-hit killed by a Sparker despite you pumping in so much ammo into all of them.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
It took me countless attempts to get past this on my normal difficulty run, and it took even longer on this hardcore run, even with the infinite ammo for the frost gun and the machine gun. I just think this room is just awfully unbalanced, and it's a real BS part of the game, and this tiny dark room could very easily end your run and prevent you from getting the platinum trophy, because it's just so frustrating and it just feels so cheap and unfair when you get killed by one of those sparkers, or when you see one get hatched despite you just pumping in a load of bullets to the enemy. This Sparker enemy in general is just BS in my opinion, and every time they appeared throughout the game, I just really hated those fights and would just roll my eyes every time I saw a Sparker, as it just becomes an absolute chore to kill them and an absolute pain to suffer through all of its BS if it manages to spawn in more enemies or just grab you instantly and kill you. It's a stupid move to give to what is essentially just a standard enemy type. I mean, even the final boss can't do that to me. And it's the final boss, for God's sake. I mean, look, when that grabs you, you just break free. Yet when this low-level enemy grabs me, I just die instantly. There's no quick time event or a chance to break free if you have like a knife item or something. Nope, it just kills you instantly, and that just sucks. And this enemy and this room in particular just really soured my experience with what is otherwise a really good Resident Evil 2 Remake clone, and made this Demolition Woman trophy for getting an S rank on hardcore difficulty even more frustrating. And if there wasn't that save game trick where you make a save in multiple slots at the same place to prevent the deaths from being counted on your save file, then I'm honestly not sure if I would have ever gotten past this bit or had the patience to keep trying runs and failing here. So the Sparker enemy, this horrible room, and this annoying hardcore Demolition Woman S rank trophy, One Punch trophy in A Hat in Time, which you unlock by defeating any boss with the One Hit Hero badge equipped and fight the boss. And sadly, it's not just a boss fight, as you will have to get through an entire platforming section before you get to him. It's rather dapper looking yellow bird. So as the fight begins, you definitely want to make sure you have the time stop hat equipped, as this will let you slow down time to more easily dodge some of the boss's attacks. And speaking of the attacks, this boss packs quite the punch. Like the dive bomb you need to dodge, as well as the falling debris that you're going to have to avoid. And when he's on the ground, he will often do a lunging pounce at you that you need to avoid and then quickly hit him as he tries to get back up. He'll also slam his giant wrecking ball into the stage, and that creates a shockwave that you have to jump over. After hitting him a few times, he will begin to rage and start doing new moves, like this knife attack which he does in the dark, where he throws a load of knives at you, or this knife frenzy move, which you need to do the homing attack on him to hit him without getting hurt. As well as these new moves, his other attacks now begin to get upgraded, giving them slight variations, the worst of which is the wrecking ball that starts out simple, but in the second wave there's a slight delay before the ball drops, which means your timing is off. The third version of this move introduces 2 photocopies of the ball that also slam into the ground, meaning you have 3 shockwaves you have to jump over and avoid. The fourth and final version offers up 5 of these balls that slam into the ground, meaning you have 5 different shockwaves to try and avoid, which will likely get you killed. He'll also summon these cars onto the stage that you need to avoid as they crash into each other, with the upgrade adding even more cars into the area, and it can be a bit nerve-wracking when they appear, but this is easy to dodge if you just slow down time and run to the bottom right corner as soon as they appear. They won't hit you. The knife throw attack also gets harder to avoid as there are more knives thrown, and I think they go a bit faster, so that will likely kill you too. And remember, you have the One Hit Hero badge equipped at the minute, so if you get hit just once during any of that, you are sent straight back to the beginning of the fight to do it all over again. And trust me, you will die a lot attempting this trophy, and it will start to get really frustrating when you die on some BS parts due to the controls, the camera, or just the boss's annoying moves, as you can't make a single mistake through this. Otherwise, it's back to the start to try and get through all of this perfectly all over again. And this whole fight sequence here lasts about 2 minutes, and while that doesn't seem that long, When you're trying to do all of this without getting hit and not making a single mistake, that can just feel like a lifetime, and the pressure of having to start over again if you fail starts to mount, and it really does make this a tense fight. But if you can do all of that without getting hit and hitting the boss himself, eventually the boss will disappear and the lights will go out, and then all of a sudden a table appears in the middle of the stage with the boss there having a conversation with you, and after the conversation the boss disappears and you're left in the darkness. So surely the fight's over now, right? Well, no, because it turns out all of that you just got through without getting hit was just the first phase of this boss fight. So now you've got to fight him all over again, this time with a bomb strapped to you that's counting down with a little timer in the corner of the screen to add even more pressure to this already annoying boss fight where you can't get hit once. Jeez! Near this section, the boss has a couple new moves, mainly these saw blades that he'll throw at you either from the rafters or when he's on the ground. 3 of them will come after you, and it's a case of just using the slow-mo hat to slow down time and hit him. It will also start to do some of his other attacks from the previous phase, and after hitting him several times, the other bird will be able to get the bomb off your back by using these giant scissors, and after cutting the bomb off you, surely now the boss is over, right? Well, that's another big fat no, I'm afraid, because now he gets even more angry, and even worse, he summons 4 henchmen into the stage that will just constantly follow you around, so you have to try and hit the boss who does all of his other moves without anyone hitting you, because if you get hit once here, well, it's straight back to the very beginning of the fight because there are no checkpoints. And remember earlier when I said it was really frustrating to die for some BS parts? Well, here's 2 where I died pretty late into the fight. So this was definitely BS. As I jumped towards him to try and hit him, I just got pushed back by absolutely nothing. Then the girl was stunned on the floor and I got hit by the saw blade.
What the f- Check this out!
A similar thing happened to me near the end of the fight. After hitting the boss, I got pushed back behind the stage, and as I tried to jump out to avoid getting hit, I got pushed back again by nothing and died. This is already a tough trophy as it is, so you don't need crap things like that happening. And there you go, that is me getting it. That is my perfect run of the Chapter 2 boss fight for the One Punch trophy in a hat in time. And maybe I just picked the wrong boss, because that one was really hard, but I know a lot of them just drag on like this one, so I don't think it would have made a difference what boss I'd picked. This was a tough trophy, and it took me over an hour in order to unlock it. It's a good challenge, but these boss fights are just way too long. Having to dodge everything and be perfect for that long is BS. Aliens Dark Descent was a really tough game to platinum, and it was mainly down to 2 trophies. This ain't no picnic for finishing the game on Nightmare mode, which is its hardest difficulty, and also the Perfect Organism trophy was kinda tough as well for finishing the game on the No One Can Hear Them Scream mode, which limits your saves. But the worst part was definitely the Nightmare difficulty, and that run was made even worse because of just how glitchy the game was. Because Aliens not Isolation, I always call it Isolation, Aliens Dark Descent was a really broken game at launch, and it stayed broken for several months after its release. The alien AI just gets really spotty and patchy. Sometimes they can spot you from a mile away, sometimes they won't see you, other times you'll just constantly get the the invasions coming in all the time. Even after you do a big bit in the story, you'll just get another one on top of it, and it will just bleed your resources dry. There was issues with the game where certain missions, the frame rate would just go really slow and just choppy, and then there was another mission where you couldn't save because the game just wouldn't register your saves for an entire mission. And when you're trying to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, Nightmare, for that trophy, not being able to save for the whole duration of a mission just made things even harder than they ever needed to be. There was also a mission in the snow where every time I went to build a shelter, which is something you can do in certain rooms to just calm your marines down and even make a manual save, the game would just lock up and crash. I had points where I would send marines to open up certain chests, and I would find that they would just get stuck to the chest and they wouldn't be able to move, and that would just like completely end my run. So it was a very slow slog to try and get through the game on the hardest difficulty for the This Ain't No Picnic trophy. It really did live up to its name, and I did this attempt on my second playthrough of the game, so I already sort of knew the layout of the levels and what sort of happens and where you need to go, but the Nightmare mode just added even more alien routes and patrols, and it was just an actual nightmare to get through, and I did really struggle with it. You've got to know what marines to pick. You've got to rely on all the RNG of what drops and what perks you're going to be awarded to be on your side. You've also got to be aware that every time you go into deploy a mission, you're advancing the day system that they have in the game, and with every passing day, the infestation level of the planet goes up and up, which means there'll be more aliens placed into the levels the higher that infestation level goes up. So the game becomes harder as you go along, and it doesn't always give you good stuff to balance that out. And if your marines die, then that sets you back even further, because you're going to have to go into those levels with lower ranked marines, and they're not going to be as good. And yeah, it was a really, really tough challenge. But despite like all the problems with the game, the quality of the product, I absolutely love this game, and I think it's probably one of, if not the game of the year for me, because I really, really liked it, and I don't normally play these type of games. And even though I had all those problems with it, and even though these trophies were really hard, I also went and played the PS4 version, mainly because the PS5 version, when I was playing it, you couldn't actually unlock the platinum because there was a collectible datapad trophy that was glitched. So I wanted the platinum after all this work, and I ended up going back and playing the PS4 version. And that time round on Nightmare for the This Ain't No Picnic trophy, I actually managed to do it fairly well, because on my PS5 run, I think the infestation level got way too high, and on that last level, the last proper mission, I just couldn't manage with all the aliens just constantly being aggressive. So what I had to do was extract midway through and then go back in to calm things down. But yeah, it's a really good challenge, and it is a trophy that I really did enjoy unlocking this year. There were countless moments during my extreme big boss rank playthrough where I felt that maybe I couldn't do this, that this was a trophy that was just out of my reach, as this difficulty level seemed impossible to beat, especially with all of these restrictions on healing, killing, ammo, alerts, use of special items, time taken, and worst of all, saves. It's a brutally harsh difficulty where bosses can kill you in 1 or 2 shots, and when one wrong step can cause an alert and ruin your run. You can't kill anyone whatsoever, so bosses become way harder and longer, as you have to slowly whittle down their stamina with the M9 tranquilizer pistol. And seeing as though you can also never get spotted, each room becomes a puzzle that needs to be solved first before you can get through it silently. For every move you make, the game has a reaction to it, and there are usually consequences. I could trank a guard to easily get past them, but will other ones see it? Or will someone call him on the radio and wonder where he is? I could shoot out that camera, but will a guard hear the shot? Or would I need those bullets for later? There's loads of moments like that, and it makes going for the big boss rank a rather intense and heartbreaking experience that will push you to your limits. These requirements for the big boss rank make this tough difficulty even harder, to a point where it's actually rather brutal and unforgiving. You can't use any rations, so you can never heal yourself. You can't kill anybody. You can only use a set amount of ammo, 700 shots, which, when you have to use about 200 on Ray, doesn't leave you with that many. You can have no alerts other than the 3 enforced ones. You can't use the infinite ammo wigs, bandanas, or the stealth camos. You have 3 hours to complete the game, and you have to do all of that only using 8 saves. Yikes. Yet for a lot of it, the game never really felt cheap, as a lot of times my failures were my own, whether it was just nerves, worrying about being so close to a save point after playing for 20 minutes, or just me fumbling the bag and doing something stupid. It was mostly always something I did wrong that I could have done better. So despite the many failures, each time that I did fail, I kind of learned something, be it a new tactic or just not what to do on that room. That would basically help me in my next attempt, where I would hopefully get past it that time. This big boss trophy is one that demands almost perfection from a player, and it really does make you feel worthy of the big boss title when you finally unlock the trophy, as by this point you have truly mastered MGS2. I ended up being totally engrossed in the game, and even when I wasn't playing it, I was thinking about this run and this trophy and whether I could get it or not, and I was watching YouTube videos of runs online on my phone, just itching for a chance to get back on and try out some of those strategies to try and get to my next save point. This trophy honestly taught me new ways to approach MGS2, which is pretty special considering how old this game is now, and it taught me like new strats for bosses and optimal routes to take through the game. It challenged me to play this game in a completely different way, a much harder way, and one that I simply never bothered to before, as there was no trophy for Big Boss rank on the PS3 version. I will say losing a good 20 or so minutes of gameplay in between each save point when failing was just utterly heartbreaking, especially if it was just something out of nowhere that I didn't see coming, and then that save put me right back at a boss fight that I would then struggle to beat again for another hour or so. And yeah, I'm looking at you, fat man, you.
Jack, what's going on? Answer me! Jack!
So I think you can't really ask much more from a trophy, to be honest. Like this is a cool example of a good challenging trophy that it's tough, but it's doable. It is doable. But I will say, despite enjoying the playthrough and liking the challenge and how great it felt to finally beat it and see that trophy pop up, getting past the tanker section, really, it just is the start of your problems, to be honest. And right away with Raiden, there's a really tricky bit at the start with those 3 guards that Snake has knocked out. This walkway here with the claymores on was also a real pain, and I failed on this section quite a bit. This horrible parcel sorting room where there's a bomb that goes around these conveyor belts was also really horrible, and it was where I was forced to just save for the second time, I believe, because I just kept failing here. So as soon as you enter, there's like a guard that's like right in front of you that will see you, and you have to stand at the doorway to try and shoot him. And then there's like 3 other guards in the room that you have to quickly take out. Forced me to save here, which was earlier than what I wanted, so it made the rest of the run to the next save point harder. The Fortune boss fight is a weird one because you don't actually fight her, and trying to just survive her attacks on extreme was a pain because she's only really got to hit you once or twice and then you're just dead. And the Fat Man fight, oh my god, the Fat Man fight is probably one of the hardest fights in the bleeding game, and one that just took me ages to do. And because I'd saved just before the fight, every time I failed the section after it up to like the Harrier, I had to start this over again from here and beat Fat Man all over again. And honestly, this fight is just horrible because it can go from a 1 to a 10 like within seconds, because if he gets away from you and plants a couple of bombs, you're basically done for because you're not going to get enough time. And the fact that he can bloody hit you and hurt you when he just skates through you is just frustrating. The amount of times he killed me like that was just really annoying. I just really didn't like the Fat Man fight. The Harrier, oh my god. Okay, so the Harrier fight, it isn't that bad, but the machine gun fire that just goes on endlessly was really annoying. But one of the worst parts for me was when I died randomly, despite being in cover, hiding from all the missile strikes. For some reason I just got killed and then died. And then worse than that, when I finally beat the Harrier for the first time, I died on the leap of faith and had to instantly restart and do the fight all over again. God.
Right. Are you all right? Answer me. Right.
After you get the aims and then you get spotted and you have to escape the building, you're supposed to go down up this lift back to the first floor, but there's always this guard right here at the door, and when I'd run out of the lift he would always see me, and that just cost me about 2 or 3 runs trying to get past him. In the end I just stayed in the lift and waited for him to walk in front of it so I could get him in a headshot, but even then it was still risky. I did not like that guy. He is like the worst placed enemy in the game for me. Vamp is a tough fight, and I had to use the cheese to just punch him constantly until he ran out of stamina, but that was really tricky and a really annoying bit to do. Thankfully I made my save just before that fight, but yeah, that was a really annoying bit. Emma and Raiden dying on a water mine after the Vamp bit. Getting clipped here by this mine, even though I feel like I was far enough away from it, was really frustrating. And then every other time I had to try and come past there, it was really tricky because it's just so awkward with the swimming controls to try and get yourself through this doorway. So annoying. I feel like the sniper section would have been BS, but thankfully it doesn't matter if Emma is spotted, though that one mine there is really awkward to get, especially with the snipering controls. The next bit that was really painful was the Tengu hallways, because I made my save just after the prison cell bit, so I'd always have to come through here and go through that sword corridor every time I failed the Tengu hallways, and the only way I could get through these was using the glitches to get past them. But every time I try and throw a stun grenade, I would always get shot, and Snake would just drop the stun grenade at his feet, which would then just do nothing, or Raiden rather. So annoying. And then there's a section after that where you have to use the coolant spray. That was really BS. I don't know how you would get past those bits on extreme trying for the big boss run without doing those strategies. They just seem like these really obnoxious bits because it doesn't even fill up your health when you get through to the second area, which I think it really should, because how are you supposed to do this legit? Because Snake, what he does shoot them, he dies really quickly, so I don't know how you would do that normally. That is just a crazy section of the game. The Metal Gear Ray fight, oh my god. This is definitely a BS part of the run because you have to fight 20 of these before the fight ends, and well, they can just kill you really, really easily. And usually if you're not on top of things and getting into this specific pattern to be able to get them all before they really attack you, you'll just get flooded with an endless barrage of missiles, and then there's that laser thing that could just kill you with one shot. They also shoot other missiles out at you that are really hard to dodge. Even if you cartwheel, you usually get clipped by it. There's just so many things that I didn't like about this fight. Like, if you accidentally miss with one of the Stinger missiles, it might just not let you fire a while as that one just flies off into the distance, or you'll end up locking onto the wrong thing and the missile just flings around all over the place. And one of the things I didn't like at the start, after getting the 3 of them down, and then moving away as the first one jumps on, he would always like do this foot stomp instead of this laser attack, and then that would just take me out of the pattern, and it was really hard to just get in it and stay in it. And I really didn't like this fight, to be honest. I thought this was a bit terrible, because this fight took me several hours before I could nail it down reliably enough to whittle all his health down without dying. But yeah, once it was over, my god, it felt good because I'd finally beaten the game. But yeah, for me, those are some of the more BS parts of this run. But like I said, I did actually enjoy this playthrough and the challenge of getting this big boss rank for this big boss trophy. And those are the hardest trophies I unlocked in 2023. What about you? What hard trophies did you earn? Let me know in the comments below.